Welcome to the Best Place to Work podcast, where we promise actionable tips from real business leaders on building amazing work cultures. Not tips from Google, but tips from the trenches of real-world businesses just like yours. Today on the podcast, we have Michelle Jacobs and Matt Hertig of Alight Analytics in Kansas City, Missouri. Alight is a marketing data aggregation platform that they started in 2007. They currently have 30 employees, and most of the interview is focused on them talking about how they drafted their core values, and living those values out have really been the biggest contributor to their great culture. Let's just jump right into the interview. So I'm here with Michelle Jacobs and Matt Hertig from Alight Analytics. Good afternoon to you guys. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah. So why don't you guys start a little bit? I know you guys, the company's been around since 2007. You guys have won multiple awards for Best Place to Work. Why don't you guys take me back to the beginning a little bit and tell me about the origins of the company and specifically like the backgrounds you guys came to the company with as it pertains to like management. So maybe before you guys started the company, what management experience did you have and the beginning days of the company?
Sure, absolutely. Well, thanks for having us today. You know, when I started in the company with Matt, you know, my background was really in advertising and marketing. So I started out my career at an advertising agency called Saatchi & Saatchi, and then moved over to the corporate side of the world. And really having those two backgrounds, agency and corporate, was good for helping me understand how corporations work, what we wanted to do as managers, what we didn't want to do as managers. There's definitely a lot of learnings working for large companies like American Century Investments and H&R Block. You learn a lot about the do's and the don'ts, you know, what motivates people, what doesn't. You know, working for a company like American Century, it was always one of the top places to work, had amazing benefits. So it was a great example of, you know, how to treat your employees and really how to reward them for hard work. And kind of conversely, you know, other companies were more challenging where there was a lot of turnover and poor management structures. and so that, you know, I think really has shaped a lot of how we manage today. And, you know, we always tell new people when they start that, you know, politics is not something that flies at our company. You know, we spent way too many years dealing with that in corporate environments and not something that we're willing or, you know, going to enable it at Alight.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and to Michelle's point, I think my background, I spent 15 years in the corporate environment, and there's some really good things that you can learn from a corporate structure. We actually worked together at American Century, which is where we got to know each other. But again, I think with any experience, whether it's good or bad, it's how do you learn from those experiences? And you know, I led different teams in my corporate world, and the last stop was a CIO for a database marketing company. And I think that the idea of managing and leading people has always been something that both of us have and enjoyed. But I also think that, you know, with starting Alight, we wanted to do things a little bit different. And first and foremost, we just treat people like adults, for lack of a better term. We're just brutally honest and say, this is our environment. This is what our expectation is. We will support you 100%. But at the end of the day, you know, our job isn't to do what we hired you to do. Our job is to facilitate your success. And I think people embrace that. And I can tell you that, you know, being in business for so long, not everyone has been successful in that kind of environment. And I think that's okay, because I think that one of the challenges that maybe companies fall into is trying to be everything to everybody. And that's really not how you can build a culture. You really have to have a culture, which is your identity of who you are and how you're going to do things.
Definitely. So tell me about when you guys first started the company, you know, setting those first things around the culture. Because you guys are what, like 50 people now, roughly?
About 30.
About 30. Okay. So, you know, you guys have grown steadily throughout the years, but when you guys first started, I heard you guys saying that you had these experiences and you wanted to make them better, improve upon them when you started the company. What were some of the core things that you did right off the bat that you felt like really shaped that culture?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a great point. I think it's being being real with people. I think being honest with them about expectations. Again, as I said, but I can tell you, I don't know that we really did a fantastic job as leaders. Because when you're entrepreneurs and you start a company and you start adding people to your organization, there's not really a handbook for that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they teach up in college, but you kind of have to feel your way. It's like so many things in owning a business. And
just because we're good at marketing analytics doesn't mean we're great managers or the best managers, out of the box.
Yeah, I think, yeah. And to that point, I think that while we had leadership experience and we understand the concepts of it, it wasn't really until we grounded ourselves in our core values and guiding principles that we developed for the company, and there's 6 of those, that really gave us an identity about, we were doing some good things and we were doing things the right way, but we didn't really have a grounding point, for lack of a better term. And those six guiding principles that we have really given us an identity about how to talk about who Alight is, and they're a part of everyone's review process that we go through. Because the guiding principles to us aren't things that you just put on the wall. It's your identity, and that's how we shape our culture.
So those weren't originally part of the company, right?
No, they weren't. We started one of the things that we started doing as leaders. We were smart enough to start to form a leadership team around us, right? So one of the best things you can do as entrepreneurs is understand that you aren't the smartest person in the room,
right.
And that you need to surround yourself with different talents and different perspectives. And so we did that, and our leadership team really was instrumental in helping us establish those guiding principles.
That's great. Like, was that you said we didn't want to just put it up on the wall. And I feel like that's sometimes what people are just do, like, oh, we have to come up with guiding principles to kind of talk about it. How did you actually make those like a real part of the business? You said you use them in the review process. What are some other ways that those have really gotten into the ethos of Alight?
Yeah, like I said, we definitely use it in the review process. It is our review process. So when annual reviews come up, those guiding principles are what people are gauged upon, their success at the company. So that's certainly an important part. And the other key thing is that it's really not Matt and I handing down those guiding principles or telling people that, oh, you need to have fun, or you need to be, doing teamwork today. Mm-hmm. It really, the culture of the company really comes from every single employee there. They're the ones that decide if, they want to have that kind of culture or not. And luckily they've chosen that they have. And, we see it come through on our different surveys that we've done, where when people ask what are the great things about working at Alight, those guiding principles are the things that usually bubble up to the top. So we know that people are taking those seriously. And we do take the time. We'll be doing it next week, actually, to get the teams together and to, do exercises to talk about the guiding principles and to do things like Myers-Briggs and, have some time set aside where really as an organization, we're helping people understand, what those guiding principles mean to us and listening to what those guiding principles mean to them so that we can, become as a company even better, and live those guiding principles even more.
Yeah, and to Michelle's point, how we developed those guiding principles was we actually had everybody in the organization at the time. We set aside, an afternoon, and we talked about characteristics that we wanted to represent as an organization, and it truly was a whiteboard brainstorming exercise about these are the kinds of things that we want to be known for. Obviously communication, integrity, and leadership, and innovation, and fun. Those kinds of things aren't things that Michelle and I sat in a room and said, hey, these sound good, let's do that. these were all terms that everyone at the company at the time participated in shaping. And we really felt that it was a representative of who we are as a company. And so not only is it part of the review process, but Michelle and I meet with all new team members when they join the Alight family, and we go through those and we talk about them and we share our experience on how we started the company, and that it's not, starting a company is not easy. It takes a lot of hard work and dedication, and I would say the same thing for a culture. You can't expect the owners of a company to mandate what the culture is. The culture just has to be something that is, and it's something you have to continue to work at. And as Michelle said, we don't own the culture. Everyone owns the culture. Everybody has to be a part of holding each other accountable and being supportive of one another in the principles that we've set out as a company.
Yeah, did you find that after you drafted those and then started to work on those? I mean, it sounds like, and I know a lot of times when value statements and stuff are drafted, they're really a result of not only the founders, but then some of the feelings and actions that are already happening, but then you're solidifying those in a vision statement or, the core values. Did you find yourself like doing intentional time to talk just as a leadership team to say like, hey, how are we doing here? It sounds like you guys are doing that collectively as a company, but then saying like, okay, we're going to do these things, as an executive team, or we're going to reevaluate these as we go along,
Yeah, I think. Well, again, I think when you're dealing with a culture and you're dealing with a company, you're dealing with human dynamics, and it would be it would be a lie to say that we've always been perfect and we've always had the perfect mix of people that are always embracing those. But I think if you don't have that, it's a qualitative type of discussion. Whereas if you have something to ground you, where if you have someone on the team who isn't communicating the way that they need to be communicating, you can go back to those guiding principles and say, look, this is an overall expectation of our culture. And when I'm not doing that, you need to hold me accountable, because I think that we as leaders can't sit in the glass tower, so to speak. And Michelle and I are very real about that, and very real with everyone in the company, in particular our leadership team, when we aren't doing the things that reflect those guiding principles, not unintentionally, we just don't see it. Hold us accountable, and I think that's part of just being real and honest. That makes our culture, healthy.
Yeah. What would you say? What caused you to delay putting those in place? Was it you just didn't have a framework for it? Was it not really knowing how to implement it? I mean, what was the cause of saying, oh, we need to? What is the pain that maybe forced you guys to do that?
I think it was just the getting to be larger. When you're small, you're working so closely with every single team member that there isn't really a question about what you're all collectively trying to accomplish. And there isn't a question about, the guiding principles. We don't have them written down, but we're headed towards the same goal. And, when there's just a handful of you, it's really easy to do that. I think the turning point for us was really once we put a leadership team in place. We're at the point where Matt and I are no longer managing every single person at the office. We're no longer, working with them on a day-to-day basis like we were when we were small. And I think that was probably the pinnacle of, okay, we're not everybody gets to see the passion that comes through in us. Not everybody gets to, work with us on a daily basis and see the things that are important to us. So since, we were adding layers, that was a good time to add guiding principles so that we all could be on the same page, and that we could understand, what the other team members, what was important to them as well. Like Matt said, it wasn't something that he and I created and we ran off and told everybody, here's what our guiding principles are. The team created it. We were part of that process, but the team created it. So it was good to hear from everybody what they thought the company meant and what they wanted the company to stand for. But really, I think it was just a function of growing and not, having necessarily all day long interaction with every single team member.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think it's funny because it's something that's talked about, but people don't always do it with the intensity that you guys did it. Like saying, okay, we're gonna be really intentional about this, and we're gonna really live it out, and like you said, remain accountable to the team. What are some other things that you guys feel like you learned over the 10 years that maybe are common pitfalls that maybe you've seen with friends or people in peer groups that they're not doing right, and that you guys maybe lived through, or lessons you've learned apart from the core principles that someone could implement in their business as they're growing?
Wow. Well, how much time do we have?
Yeah, maybe just big things.
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. There's so many things that we've learned. Definitely having, and this maybe isn't exactly what you're getting at, but having processes in place. I mean, that's something that it's hard for people to be successful when clear processes and expectations aren't outlined. And I know it sounds really easy, but when you're just trying to get things out the door, it happens a lot where you just kind of forget to have some structure around things, and you're just going 90 miles an hour and not really thinking about the long-term impact. And that can really, hurt morale. It can hurt the company when people are just trying to get things done without a system in place. So that's certainly, one thing that we've learned. Another thing is the importance of a very stringent hiring process.
Yep.
Making sure that when we do hire somebody, that they are interviewed extensively by different departments, different team members. We also take personality tests like Myers-Briggs or skill tests like the DISC very seriously, and that's something that we always implement as well. Making sure that there's people are fit. Like Matt said, not everybody is going to thrive in this kind of environment, and have us both living, having lived in corporate environments, having lived in agency environments, we know what kind of people I think work best in certain kind of environments. And some people are made for corporate, some people are made for agencies, some people are made for startups, and that's okay. But recognizing that in people when you're interviewing them, and trying to make sure that you're not hiring somebody that is going to get really frustrated in a more laid back or lackadaisical environment like we have, is really important.
No, that's great. I think that's a huge aspect. That's something that takes a long time trying to figure all that out.
We've messed that one up a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and do the second half here of the show to talk about a little bit more from feedback from your employees.
Great.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by Waypoint. If you want to get your team aligned and you want to go from herding cats to a well-oiled machine, and if you're sick of the annual review process, then check out Waypoint. It's an elegant tool built for leaders just like you to help you invest in your people and unlock their true potential. Head over to waypointhq.com to learn more. Yeah, so we did a little survey of your employees, and we got some very, very good feedback. So you guys are doing awesome. One of the things that came up was that it's in the positive way is that you guys have a family culture, and feels like a meritocracy is actually some of the verbiage that people used. That sounds like that would probably be an outflow of a lot of the stuff that you guys are already doing. But how do you guys anticipate maintaining that as you guys grow past 30 up towards like 100 people, if that's in the cards for you guys? If you guys want to do that, how are you going to maintain that as you guys grow?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because and even Michelle and I, we talk about this a lot, in the sense is that we as owners and leaders, we have to continue to invest more time in being intentional about the culture, meaning that we have to spend less time doing and more time leading, demonstrating the culture by example, looking for opportunities to engage people. That's something that you have to you have to continue to look across the organization and see where weaknesses are. Culture is like, I guess I would say it's like exercising. You have to work at it constantly, because if you let it just kind of sit, it gets out of shape, and you don't want that. So it's definitely harder work to try and create and maintain that family type of culture, but I think it breeds better results for our clients. I think it breeds a much better work environment where people are excited to come to work every day. And ultimately, we spend so much time invested in the working space. Why not create an environment, or do the best that we can to create an environment that is something that people enjoy.
And I think one of the most interesting things is that we recently heard from people who've been there for quite a few years that right now is the best environment that we've ever had at the company.
Yeah.
They love the people there more than ever. And to your point, you would think it would start to go the opposite since we're bigger now, right? Since we've added, so many more people this year. I mean, we've really grown a lot just the last 2 years. You would think it would be the opposite, like, oh, well, now that there's more people, we're actually struggling a little bit, but it's the other way. And they're loving everybody there, as friends, and people are, spending time outside of work together. It's funny, when we worked at American Century, they always did these surveys, and they asked, one of the questions on the survey was always, do you have a best friend at work?
Yeah.
And I think that it's been really fun for us to see people be friends outside of work and truly take an interest in each other and care about each other and hang out. And, it's not just playing ping pong during the day or going to happy hour, but, spending time together, either with their families or hanging out at a bar or whatever it is. I think that's a testament to the leaders that we have in place.
That's right. Yeah.
And again, the people that we've hired are just really great people. We've just gotten really lucky.
Yeah, and I think the thing with culture is that it's not you wake up one morning and say, hey, we're going to have a good culture today. It takes time, and when you consistently invest in it and you're serious about it, it can build momentum. And I feel like that's where Alight is we've continued to gain momentum about who we are, what we represent, the type of people that are going to be successful in our culture. Because again, with any company, not 100% of everyone will not be successful. It all comes down to the environment that you can really relate to and that you could find yourself being successful in. And when we changed our interviewing process to be really diligent and very honest with people about this is who we are and this is the expectation that you are going to protect it as much as the person sitting next to you, that allowed us to continue to build, to add, members to our family that are committed to it, and it continues to build upon itself.
So you said, no, I think that's great. I think your growth with consistent culture is a testament to the work you put in on the front end. So I think that's awesome. What do you say? I mean, to somewhat play devil's advocate, when you're working on culture, you said, okay, you got something you got to work on. What does that actually mean? I mean, is that like addressing issues and making sure that if something does pop up, you're addressing it quickly and saying this is why we don't do that? Or, what are the ways that you're tactically actually saying, okay, this is an activity I'm doing to maintain the culture? Is it like getting people out of the office? Is it doing regular reviews of where the company's at in terms of revenue or something? What are those action items that someone's like, okay, I did the core values, we're interviewing well, but we're still having issues. Like what are some of the other tactical things that you can do to work on culture?
I think a couple of the things that pop up in my mind, which might be even a little bit different than what you're thinking, is we continue to, as Matt said, we continue to work as managers and leaders to empower people we don't micromanage them. We empower them to do their jobs. It is up to everybody to take ownership of their work and to get things done. And we are not in any way leaders that are trying to push down orders or to tell people what to do. And we hear repeatedly that is a huge thing that makes our culture what it is that people do feel empowered. They, are independent workers and have a lot of freedom to do what they feel needs to be done. And I think that when people are happy like that, it naturally feeds a great culture. So I guess I would say, if people are struggling with culture, that would be one thing, is to make sure you're not micromanaging people or giving them, way too little independence, because that certainly, we've seen that certainly can backfire quite easily.
Yeah, I think another thing is that we don't look at the people who are at Alight as employees, we really see them as part of this collective family that, we're all united to try and change the marketing industry. That's really what we're marching towards. We're not there just to make our clients successful. Of course, that's what we rally around, but we're also about trying to change this industry in the way that you go about, understanding the performance of marketing. And so it's like, that is a grand thing to say, but it also comes down to things on a daily basis. I mean, because everyone gets frustrated with family, right? I mean, we all have families and we all get frustrated. There's no different than the person that you're working with. And so culture starts at those very micro moments when, if you're frustrated with somebody, well, don't go and talk to somebody else about it, or don't go home and complain about it. Just walk over to that person and say, hey, I'm really frustrated and I need your help. And those sorts of things are learnings that we had from working in really large companies that, I think those things get lost. And we've had, over the years, people come into our office and say, so-and-so is not doing this. And so our first response is, well, have you talked to them? And most of the time it's no. And so that needs to be the first action, is to be open and honest, right? And it's why clear communication is a guiding principle in our company. It's why teamwork is that if you're being a good team member and you're clearly communicating, then you're accountable to those things.
One other thing we've learned too is that you can have all of the best happy hours, you can have ping pong, you can have a beer fridge, you can have free food, you can have all of these perks, but at the end of the day, that doesn't make people happy and that doesn't keep people around. What we've learned is that it's really understanding, what the team needs and challenging them. And for a lot of our team, they want to continue to learn and they want to continue to be challenged and they want to continue to do new things. Those are way more important to them than all the free beer that we have in the fridge. Yeah, exactly. We still have all that stuff, but that's not, what's at the end of the day, what's making them super happy. And, that sometimes, you hear about these big companies in Google and they have all these perks, but I feel like what we've learned is that those are nice to have, but those certainly aren't what fundamentally are making people happy and what are, encouraging people to live the culture. Yeah.
Although I would say that the natives get restless if food gets low and
they do.
Jars,
yeah, the beer fridge is out right now, and so there's a bit of an uproar.
And the kegerators,
right? Yeah. But, yeah. When we can't, whatever happens, we can't move the ping pong table. So
that's right.
Yeah. You got to have some core things that you're doing and making sure they're still happening.
Right.
That's great. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time. Do you guys have any last words or last piece of advice to someone that's, grown a company from 10 to 100 and struggling, other than what you guys already mentioned?
I would just say one of the things that we kind of constantly have to go back to is just being patient. Culture it's an invisible thing. It's not something that you can quantify, but it is something that you have to work on. And you have to be patient. And for any of the entrepreneurs out there, I think we would say you can't do it by yourself. You have to surround yourself with other leaders. And that's the only reason we've been successful, is because of the leadership team that we have in place. And then, of course, everybody within the organization embracing them is really the key to success that we found.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for listening. If you found the show valuable, please give us some love on iTunes. But if there's any reason that you would rate us less than 5 stars, please let me know. Shoot me a note at mike@bestplacetoworkpodcast.com. Thanks.